So let's solve the problem number 1929, and this is the problem over here. So given an integer array nums, we have an integer array nums. Array is basically a list of elements. Multiple elements are stored in a list. Okay, integer array nums of length n. Let's highlight this. The length is n. We have to create an array ans of length 2n. We want to create an array of size 2n. If the length is n of the given array, we want to create it for 2n, where ans of I is equals to nums of I. That is the index, that is the elements which are present in the given array is equals to the elements present in the output array. But there's another question, there's another condition over here. Ens of I plus 1, that is n is the length of array is equal to nums of I. Or let's skip this part for now. So for let's understand this question over here. Specifically, ANS is the concatenation of two nums arrays. Return the array ANS. So let's understand it by an example. 1, 2, 1 is given. We want to get 1 to 1 and then again 1 to 1. Okay. We're gonna duplicate this. Okay. This is the array over here. So for that, what we have to do is we can use two approaches for that. Okay. The first approach is we can use two loops over here. Let's say we are gonna create, we have to return this ANS, right? So firstly, we will return an ANS over here. That is gonna be an empty list. Okay. Now we need to copy it for two times, right? ANS is empty right now. Nums is full. Nums is full with 1 to 1. Nums is the input, right? Nums is 1, comma 2, comma 1. Okay. And we want to get into ANS, right? But ANS is empty and we're going to copy it for two times. So what we're going to do? We're going to use a for loop. Okay. So we'll use for loop over here and we need to iterate it. We need to copy it for two times, right? That's the first method over here. We need to iterate it for two times. We need to copy the elements of all the nums one time over here and then second time over here. Okay. Then we need to, I'll make you understand that by the code. So you understood the first logic, right? So let's code it. Firstly, what we have to do is basically copy all the elements for once to ANS and then copy all the elements of nums again to ANS again. So we are going to use two iterations for copying all those elements from the nums array to the list array or the ANS array. Okay. So let's get to the question over here. So what we have to do is over here, firstly, what I told us, we have to initialize an empty array. The question is stating that create an array. So we have done that, right? But the ENS is empty right now. So what we need to do, we need to copy the elements. Okay. We need to copy the elements of, I would say, the nums to ANS. For that to happen, we need to use for loop for I in range of 2. Okay. For I in range of 2. That's a Python syntax. Okay. For I in range of 2. 0 and 1. I'm gonna start at the 0 and then 1. Okay. Since we need to copy twice. Now, since we are copying twice, we need to select each and every element out of it, right? So for num and nums, the nums is 1 to 1, 1 to 1, right? So for each number and the list of nums, we need to do what? We need to append something to the ANS, right? Because the ANS is empty, right? And what we need to append? The current num. We need to append the current num. And then when the for loop is done, we need to do what? If all the loops are done, we need to return some simple answer, that is return ANS, right? So if you try to understand the code again, ANS is empty. That's what we wanted to create. For I in range of 2, we need to copy it 2 times, since we need to copy the array nums 2 times into the array ENS. We did it for 2 times. We use the loop 2 times. And we need to copy each element, right? Firstly, we selected this. We want to iterate to the whole block twice, but we need to also go into the block, right? For each iteration, we need to also go into the block to copy the each element. So for num and nums, we're going to do that. And then ENS is empty, right? We need to append it. So ENS empty is ENS is empty. Now we're going to use Python function ENS dot append, and we're going to append what? The num which is currently in the loop. And then we're going to return the ANS, the final ANS. Okay, so let's run this. So it's fine. Test case 1, test case 2. You submit this, if you're gonna get it right. Okay, so let's move on to the second solution. And time and space complexity is gonna be is O(n) and O(n), since we're using the. I'll try to explain it to you by single line. Since we are using an empty list, so it is gonna be the space complexity is gonna be O1, O big O1. Okay, the outer loop runs 2 times, so it's gonna be constant. So n inner loop runs n times, right? Inner loop runs n times, and the append operation is gonna be O1. So basically, we are doing 2 into n operations, but since we are using big O notation, so it's gonna be O and time complexity, and the space is gonna be the same, O n, since it is 2n, right? So it's gonna be O. So now let's get on to the second solution. For second solution, we are somewhat very much similar solution. We're gonna do one pass. We're gonna do it in a single pass. Okay. So for that to happen, we need to get the length of nums. N is equals to length of nums. I'll do that over here directly and explain that to you. Okay, because there it's getting messy. So firstly, we need to get the length of nums. Length of nums. Okay, we're getting that, and then we need to make an array, that is ANS, which we have to return. Okay, ANS, and it's gonna be 0. The what I would say is the elements of the list are gonna be 0. Okay, and it's gonna be the size of the list is gonna be twice the size of the nums. Okay, 2 into n. Fine, and it should be in round brackets. Okay, what we are doing basically over here is we need to return the duplicate, right? We need to return the twice the elements of n, right? N is equal to length of nums. So what we're doing is we are basically getting array, which is ANS, which is gonna be our output array. We are pre-locating a list with a size of 2n. Okay, size of 2n, and the elements are gonna be 0. Okay, now we're gonna iterate through it. So for I comma num and enumerate nums. Okay, now what we're gonna do is there's a very simple logic for I comma num and enumerate nums. We're iterating to each and every element. Nums is the list, key and value pairs. Key value pairs. Okay. Now ENS of I is gonna be nums. Right? ENS of I is gonna be num. Okay. ENS of I, basically ENS of 0 is equals to num. Okay. And ENS of I plus 1, I plus n, I plus n, okay, is gonna be again the same num. So whatever the num is, look, 0, 0, I is gonna be 0 over here. So ANS of 0 is equals to be 1. Okay, 1 is gonna be stored. ANS of 0 is equals to, okay, understand. I is 0, num is 1 from over here. Okay, we are using this function to get the key value pairs, okay, from the list, okay. ANS of I, what is ANS of I? Right now it is 0. And what is the num over here? 1. So ANS of 0 is gonna be storing the value num, which is 1, okay. Now, but we need the again same thing at this here, right? We need to copy this 1 to 1 is going to be copied again to 1 to 1, right? Understood? So for that to happen, we need to get the length of the first array, the length of the original array. So I plus n. What is the length of the original array? Is length of nums. So I plus n. So every time we are storing this at this particular index, and then again we are storing it at this particular index at each and every loop. We are doing it twice and the same loop. Understood? So storing the same element at different index by using I plus n, that is the length of the nums array. So it is going to get duplicated again 1 to 1. 1 is stored over here. Again, the 1 is going to be stored again since we are adding the n over here to get to that index. 2, then again we're adding n. The 1, and we're adding again 1 over here. Right? Now, what are we going to do? Simply, we're going to return the answer over here. That is just a second. Outside of this for loop, when the for loop has done all the copying and stuff, we gonna simply return ANS. Okay. Now let's run this. What we're gonna get is the case 1 is accepted and case 2 is also accepted. So basically what is happening is we're using the enumerate function. It is a built-in utility and it allows us to loop over an iterable like a tuple, list, or string. This is list, right? It is allowing us to iterate through it, keeping the track of each and every element through an index. So that is what we are basically doing. We are tracking the index, right? ANS of I plus 1, right? To do this, that's fine. And again, the time and space complexity is 0 n for both of them. Okay. So now let's run the code. And 1321 let's submit this. It's 100%. Memory is taking a lot of space. I don't know why, but I think it's an optimal solution for us. And if you look at the time and space complexity, so we are storing the length of the input length. We are basically storing the length of the input list, and we are pre-locating a list of size n. Okay, that is what is happening over here. And I think you have got this right. So I don't need to make you understand once more. So it is gonna be basically O of 1 to get the length. That is basically time to get the length, and it is a constant, right? So now we are using 2n list of size 2n, right? 2n size list. So the space and the time complexity is gonna be on, right? Loop runs n times over here, right? The loop runs n times, and n is the input, n is the length, right? So it's gonna be on time, and it is a constant over here. It is not depending on what the input is, since we're selecting a single element. So O1 time per assignment, we are using just O1. Now it's gonna return the list of size 2n. So again, it's gonna be O1 big notation, O1 big notation. Okay. So this was it for this problem. I'll see you with the next problem. Okay.